Morning, everyone. Anthony Tharp, February 12th, 2023, at 10:06 a.m. Just making another insert on what's happening. And I'm going to say Jamaica, but it's actually global corruption. And referring to some commentary that I saw online, content makers, bloggers, and influencers regarding incidents of corruption, fraud. And one of the latest things that's emerging out of this is a commentary on um, that suggests censorship. That would suggest that there's a desire to have censorship placed against bloggers who have been exposing the ongoing incidents of fraud and corruption in Jamaica, when it comes to identifying those fraudsters. And one of the persons that came up is the gentleman over by Nationwide. Um, And I was surprised when I heard some of the commentaries from him. So, Mr. Cliff Hughes, I'm going to be addressing comments you made directly um, on a video or tape I heard. I'm not making it up. And certain, there are probably hundreds of thousands of persons online on social media that heard you as well, suggesting, and it's suggesting covertly for imposition of censorship on bloggers, which for journalists is somewhat shocking. And it goes to the heart of why this community and this country and this global community of peoples, whether in Africa, China, Asia, generally, Europe, the Americas, that's why corrupt governments and governments with corrupt intent or bad intentions trying to keep people away from information that's relative to their survival and a stable society, a more empowering society, always faces, and that is censorship. Censorship of the media, censorship of people, and censorship of people's rights under a democratic constitution, which is what we presumably have in Jamaica. So for journalists to come out and even suggest that bloggers should be censored, it's somewhat shocking, especially when I can guarantee you are a part of the forces in the media circle in Jamaica that fought for government to restructure the defamation laws so that journalists could print stories and not be vulnerable to lawsuits merely because they mention a person's name. I think the law essentially holds journalists responsible, yes, or other people for defaming people if they deliberately publish misinformation. And so I'm saying this because there are laws that exist that if people do publish misinformation deliberately, that targets persons that are innocent of those accusations or allegations, then the law is there. The law is there to deal with it, and those individuals can, on their own initiative, go and take action. So I don't understand why you even sending a signal like that. If there are people out there who made comments about you personally, I did. I sent you information about several illegalities that's occurring in the courts against me and my partners personally. So these are verifiable, authenticated documents and gave you permission to publish. And in fact, everything I've put online, in fact, if not everything, most of the videos I've done online, you can check your inbox on WhatsApp or otherwise, and you see that I've forwarded them to you. And I've not hesitated in those videos where I mention you that if you have lost the appetite to become the journalist that you used to be or remain the journalist you used to be, is frankly to pack it in and go resign and retire. Because if you're not doing what you were called to do, and that's a calling that you said you were called to do, journalism, by virtue of your action and your occupation for the last how many decades, and you're not fulfilling that role, you're also not fulfilling your responsibility to the Jamaican people and the global community that's interested in building stable communities and societies where crime is eliminated. So I've found personally, dealing with the media, the traditional media, mainstream media in Jamaica, that you have deliberately gone ahead and taken the position that you're not going to be publishing certain stories about certain individuals. Yet, when it comes to other parties, especially the people in the lower echelons of society, you gladly publish their names, you call them, you out, you publish their trial, you publish when they were arrested on accusations and allegations. And there was no scream, or there still is no scream from the media about the differential treatment that's handed down to persons from the lower echelons of society and those from what we call um, uptown people. And I use that term loosely because people who live uptown, depending on your classification, aren't necessarily bad people. But I'm talking about the people who we have information about that's circulating that a good and true journalist would go investigate and publish. And you can't just be publishing generalizations about things happening in society or a journalist. We need factual, verifiable data. And that's why you have the power of research to go investigate. Journalists boast about um, investigative journalism, and that's how most journalists makes their names. That's how most journalists end up writing books about certain matters. And when you fail to perform in that direction, then my opinion is that everybody who claims they're journalists and walk around with a ID saying they're reporters and getting access to all kind of information and persons' activities, then at that point or at this point, you need to resign your positions and just leave the platform of giving information to the public. Self-imposed censorship, that's on you. And you shouldn't, because you have chosen to put self imposed censorship on you and your activities, you shouldn't try to hold other people who want to scream and shout out what they have heard as being the truth, that you want to shut them down. And to what end? Because in reality, corruption thrives on journalists who fail to perform and publish the truth and facts and evidence through research and development about what's happening in society. The corruption of our leaders and businesses and pseudo politicians in the community, in the Jamaican community, thrives because journalists like yourself fail to publish information about them. And I can freely and openly state that because I'm not making some, you know, fiction, fiction full allegation. I'm making statements that I can back up and you can back it up. I've sent you information about corruption, about people. I've named them and I've named them in videos. And yet, all of you journalists who claim you're journalists in mainstream media, including, and I've stated again, that it includes people like you, the media, published media, like the Gleaner, radio, like the Gleaner group or whatever, or RTR group, whatever they call themselves, have reached out. My partners have reached out, have sent you information, and it's constantly a ducking and failing to publish what the public needs to know. Now, if your country is under attack from people committing crimes in the public domain that are employed by the state and the journalists who are the watchdogs of the people, you will rely on to publish actual data and evidence about all the misdeeds that's going on in the public domain or realm, and you fail to do it, then you shouldn't come out talking about other people who are screaming out the truth. Because if it wasn't for social media, all this corruption that's going on and all this busting of persons who have been stealing people's money for decades would not come to light, because you would have buried it up and say, oh, you're waiting until the courts do this or there's an investigation going on, which is not your job. Your job is to expose it, and regardless of whether it's been investigated or not, or in the court, you have a duty and a responsibility and a mandate to expose it, cover it, get the word out to the people so they know what's going on, so things don't get covered up, which is why corruption thrives in this country. So you're a direct part of the cover up, the media. And again, anybody that wants to verify what I'm saying, go to scammers billions of dollars in Jamaica. 6208. Scamming billions of dollars in Jamaica. Or scamming billions in Jamaica. 6208. That's the YouTube channel that I use. And see all the evidence there. Go to all those tapes. I've named people, I've pointed out, including you, Mr. Um, anyway, it's disappointing. It's really disappointing for a person of your caliber in the media would be coming out to talking about um, bloggers don't basically deserve to be out there talking what they're saying or publishing what they're saying because you're limited by broadcast commission. And the broadcast commission can stop you from publishing the truth. So why are you limited? You should stop telling that lie. The broadcast commission can only sanction persons for breaking the law or making publications that are likely to undermine society. So, how is publishing the truth about what's going on about corruption and the people who are complicit in corruption going to undermine society? In fact, it wouldn't undermine society, it liberates society, it liberates our minds and our public, our ability to develop serious and objective rationale of how to deal with these issues. But you're saying these people should be shut down. I'm saying to all those people on social media, whether you are quote unquote, and I'll use, while whether you're using it as a means to be professionals, professional journalists, or information disseminators, don't stop. Don't stop screaming the truth. If it wasn't for you guys, a lot of the world would not know what was going on. If it wasn't for you guys, the police would not be acting on the thievery and the fraud that's going on in the banks. No, they wouldn't be doing it. And I'm saying that because I have filed claims in the Supreme Court listing even Anthony Anderson, Commissioner of Police, in that lawsuit for being complicit, because we gave the commissioner evidence of fraud going on in the society, in the community, in Jamaica, in Kingston, in Montego Bay, name the damn individuals who were committing fraud, and he has done nothing about it. We gave the information to the same journalists who are criticizing bloggers online, and now they're talking about bloggers should be sanctioned. If it wasn't for bloggers, the first person or party that exposed or gave me the option to state online the fraud that was going on and being committed against us in the court, if it wasn't for one of those content makers, Mix Up Boss, I think, so I'm going to shout him out. Mix Up Boss, I want to thank you for getting the information out, because people have been going to the channel and reading the information that's on there. And that's all I wanted to do, to give people the information so they will be conscious that you can't trust the people in the courts. You can't trust the Chief Justice, because I've named him in a lawsuit as well. And Mr. Hughes knows about it. Mr. Hughes shut up his mouth about it, didn't publish anything about it, and now it's coming about. Careful how they publish people's names and make statements about people. You have factual data about criminals operating in the judicial system. Justice B. Morrison committed a crime when he went and appointed a local person or an international person as administrator for a New York State trust. Justice Morrison don't have any jurisdiction in the United States to appoint anybody, nothing, not even to clean the toilet. Yet, this is a crime that you're sitting on. This is a crime that the Commissioner of Police knows about. This is a crime that the Chief Justice knows about. And yet, you chose not to publish it. And now you come talking about social media and bloggers. You should be ashamed of your damn self. You should be ashamed. And I need you to come out and make a statement about that. Come out and tell the world that I am telling a lie. I sent the damn information to you, and you refuse to publish it. My partners are saying they're done with Jamaican media. They don't even want to send stuff because they've been sending stuff to Jamaican media personnel. And nobody has been taking the damn thing and publishing it. And crimes are going on against us and against this nation. Because when you refuse to expose corruption that results in this nation losing development and projects that are billions and billions of dollars that will bring income and equality in terms of allowing persons to raise their economic standards and standard of living in the country, and you sit on it, you shouldn't open your mouth and chat that garbage. Start doing the investigation. And if these people are publishing things that are lie, then you do the investigation and publish it and say, this is what's going on. You don't have to be naming anybody and telling them that they're publishing lies and they should be limited. But that's what you're doing. You're trying to get authority or elected officials to now try to target these people. Fortunately, a lot of them live abroad in a market that you can't touch. And the Jamaican government can't touch them. So you guys keep up the good work. Because if it wasn't for you, a whole bunch of our people would be walking around in naive land because we believe that we can trust the government and trust the court and trust journalists like Mr. Hughes. We can't trust you because corruption exists because the media is also corrupt. Because when you participate in not publishing what the nation needs to know about and the world needs to know about, then you're a part of the crime of corruption. You're part and parcel of the packaging of it and the delivery of it and the oppression that takes place as a result of it. Corruption exists, and that's the desire of the corrupt to have a corrupt media, a media that refuses to publish the news, refuses to put, unless it's, of course, somebody from a poor community. You gladly cover them and expose them and put their names in the press. Talk all that crap about everybody else, except when it's somebody in positions, public places that we put in place to protect ourselves from the corruption and the crime. And if you don't stop those people, how the law or people are committing crimes, how you going to try to stop them? How you justify it? How we justify it? So you need to just cease and desist this nonsense. Become a journalist or retire and go home. Go retire. Journalism, as it should be, is not being practiced in Jamaica by established Main-street Media. Because all of you fall in the same bracket. We sent you information, the whole of you. I think the only party I didn't send information to was the Observer. And that's because we're suing the Observer. We have them in court for defamation. That's the only organization we haven't sent information to. And again, I'll shoot at Mr. Smith at the mirror. I'm so ashamed of that individual. And Mr. Smith knows if the job doesn't fit, if it's too big a fit for you, then you should leave it alone. Don't send messages by your agents that, oh, you're afraid of being sued. Afraid of being sued for publishing the truth? You know what it means to wear something that's too big for you. You display that in Parliament. If you're wearing something that's too big for you, it's going to fall off and it's going to trip you all over the place. The same thing with the job of being a journalist and being a publisher and bringing, having this excuse, making money from people in the community, placing ads in your papers and giving news and covering up other parts of the news that's relevant to people's survival. You don't think it's necessary for people to know that the Chief Justice in Jamaica of the Supreme Court is covering up crimes? And again, when Justice Morrison went ahead and appointed Capital One administrator for an estate that doesn't exist, that was fully probated more than 10 years before or thereabouts, knowing there was no estate, knowing that the appeals court had already ruled that this individual, this party, or this corporation had no legal interest in property that didn't even belong to the estate, property that was long sold. And he appointed them to be administrator for an estate that doesn't exist and for an estate that existed in New York and was fully probated. And I remind Jamaicans and everybody listening to this that when an estate is settled, that means exists no longer. In fact, an estate is not even a legal entity. That's why they have an executor, the only person that anybody could deal with somebody's property. And that's all an estate is, describing people's assets and liabilities on debt. It's not a legal entity. That's why I have an executor who has to assume a legal position to represent the estate. And after the appeals court ruled that the only party that could have done anything or said anything in the matter was the executor, and he was limited because there was no estate in Jamaica that belonged to that particular New York State estate. And then you're going to appoint somebody to be an administrator for a trust. But let me tell you something and tell everybody something. A trust can only be managed by a trustee. But what Justice Morrison did was appoint this Capital One to go into New York as a administrator. Then they went into New York, came back and claimed now because of the appointment of them being administrator by the courts, not stating to the United States jurisdiction that the so-called court that appointed them administrator for an estate that doesn't exist. And they couldn't go back to New York and say, they're administrator for the estate because the estate doesn't exist. So they went back and said, oh, they were appointed. Then they came back to Jamaica and tried to fool up the Jamaica judges that, oh, now they're trustees for the estate. You get it? They're trustees for the estate. A trustee is only responsible for a trust. You can be a trustee for an estate, especially a legal entity that doesn't exist in reality or in law. But that's what they did. That's what Justice Morrison did. And that's what Justice Kirk Anderson tried to uphold and tried to swindle people out of their property by refusing to appoint owners or recognize. Because he has no um, power to limit the appointment of those persons. They own it. They're the owners. He refused to recognize them in keeping with the laws of Jamaica and the rules of the court. Yeah, those are the people. Justice Sykes, who in an application for the JCF to investigate fraud, say he's not going to grant that order because then a whole bunch of people could get into trouble. He didn't use the term whole bunch. He said a lot of people could get into trouble. Whether directly those words he used are paraphrasing. But the fact is he did it, and I filed a report against that, a complaint. Minister of Justice, Mark Golding, who is also being silent on all these matters. The Chief Justice, Justice McCallum. So these are stuff you can go in there and check. Nothing I'm saying is made up. And those are the people You're trying to give cover by stating that social media bloggers are naming people and defamation, suggesting that there should be some legal action. But that's what you're doing. Think you're smart. You're losing it. You're suggesting now that government should take or suggest legal action against these people, or those people should take legal action. And in fact, if these persons are in fact, or did in fact deliberately publish information about these people and didn't say it is alleged or all of that, then fine. Those people have the right to go take action and file a defamation lawsuit. So why the hell are you putting them out in that? You're giving legal advice now. You're directing the traffic at the government when you should be observing what's going on in government or at those government locations and in the banks and publish it and expose it. Because if you were doing your job, I guaranteed that all this corruption would be so liberally, it would not be liberally being done in Jamaica on the scale that it is now evident is going on. I knew it was there. I am a victim. I'm a damn victim. And I put this stuff in your hand and say, expose it. And that's the only way we can clean out those cases. Justice Sykes should resign because he's complicit. And as I said in previously, why haven't you published the fact that Justice Sykes is named in a lawsuit? Like Anthony Anderson, like several other persons. That's public record. Quiet about it. So don't go around talking or suggesting any kind of thing about bloggers. You should leave them alone. You go do your investigative journalism. You publish the truth and challenge these bloggers to say what you published was not true. And you don't have to even state it like that. Just publish what you have verified as the truth and not the truth. And so people know that whatever the bloggers are saying aren't truthful or isn't truthful. That's all you need to do. All I need you to do is publish evidence that we provided to you. All I need mainstream media to do in Jamaica is to publish the evidence that's there about corruption in the courts. Corruption that we pointed out. Because it don't make sense running around now cleaning up corruption in the banks and leaving corrupt people operating in the courts. That these corrupt people that's coming out of the bank are going to go into or in front of. What do you think they're going to do? You think the corrupt going to convict the corrupt? I don't think so. Jamaicans, just please stop being led by these people who claim they're journalists from Main-street Media. Stop being fooled by them. They're illegit. They're not legitimate. When they start doing investigations of facts and evidence that's put in front of them and then publish the truth about who's doing what, and then you can come out and, and claim the title of being a journalist. Claim the title that you're objectively trying to protect society and the people that are there. The whole scamming that's going on, the whole gun crimes that's going on in Jamaica, it's happening not only because people are importing it, that because the journalists that are there are refusing to expose the people who live amongst them that are bringing in these guns that everybody knows if I come to Jamaica tomorrow and I need to go get some of that implement of war and destruction, I'm pretty sure it won't take me a week to find out who I can go get it from. So why aren't journalists, investigative journalists, getting that information and publishing it? Because whether it's fear or you imposing your own censorship, that's on you. And sadly enough, you don't realize that when you suppress or hide or cover up censorship, I mean not censorship, but corruption and crimes, that's what's going to come back and bite you in the butt. You're not safe because you're covering it up. Exposing it is what's going to fix the problem for everybody. So leave social media alone, leave the bloggers alone, let them get information out. Because I know one of your ulterior motives is because a lot of people are going to social media now for their information and news. That's how they keep up to date. Every you can go online and every half an hour you find a news report from social media. What we get, we hear the news broadcast from you guys 12 o'clock for 15 minutes, 7 o'clock for half an hour. Just mention. No details. Damn waste of time. That's why I don't even watch the news. When I'm in Jamaica, all I watch is some entertainment or international news. Because we're not getting anything worthwhile from the mass media in Jamaica, from Main-street Media, and from the people who claim they're journalists and fought against defamation and they successfully got it from being removed as a crime. And all the government said, I think it was under the Honorable Miss Portia Simpson, they passed it. And it says, as long as you're publishing the truth, you're okay. Don't worry. So why the need to suppress the truth? Why the need to suppress other people who are willing to publish the truth or the information? You don't think Jamaicans are deserving of it? Or you just want to sit up there on your platform and your podium and suggest things that are of very little value? Because going in and just talking about what happened, that's like a vulture picking at a corpse. After the fact is not helpful. What we want to do is get the facts and the information before the crime, because you identify the people who are potentially the ones going to commit the crime, you identify the processes they adapt, you identify the systems they have in place so that people are well aware. So when they go, they know, you know what, keep checking my accounts. You don't publish those things. Check on what's happening to my investment portfolio. You don't publish those things. The only time you publish is when you are picking at a corpse, something that's already dead and in the system. And because of that, journalists like yourself are like dinosaurs. Your era has long passed. You adapt or you cease to exist. That's just how the universe operates. So don't go around criticizing and tearing social media about what they're doing in terms of exposing the truth. And this is the dawn of a new day, a new century, a new, a new, a new time for people. People have the ability to speak out, not be led by journalists who had that power once before we had social media and the internet and a whole ton of bloggers who know they don't need some certification from some university to deliver the truth. They know can gather the information, which they have been doing, and getting it out. This is a new millennium. We're not willing to accept the foolishness of past centuries. People are finally standing up and speaking aloud and with a loud voice, not going to stand up until they get the change that we deserve. All of us deserve to live in a world where we are protected from scammers and corrupt behavior, especially from individuals we put in place to work for us. And again, the source and sustenance and maintenance of most criminal activity in any country is corruption. So go cover the corruption, Mr. Hughes. Expose it. Publish the names I gave to you. And you don't have to wait on me. As I said, I gave authorization to everybody, including people on social media. Anthony Tharp gave it permission for them to access my information, anything I filed in the courts, so they can go and assess the truth themselves. You can go and assess the truth yourself before you publish it, but you must publish it or keep your trap shut. Thank you.